Greetings, Hempster. Welcome to another Hempisode of Hempaware Radio. This is your entrepreneurial host, Tyler Hemp, here to empower your hempisphere as usual. And we've got some amazing insights and information to share with you today. I'm going to be joined here by Arlo Estel from HempSmith Clothing, a brand that's really redefining style with eco-friendly hemp apparel. And over at HempSmith, they make hemp clothing, or I should say they do tie-dye and printing and embroidery on the hemp clothing, which is really a cool style. You got to check them out, hempsmithclothing.com. And the process is kind of old-fashioned. They print by hand and tie-dye each of their shirts by hand and prep their own dyes. And they use big sinks for their dye house. And they're located over the plant in Pittsboro, North Carolina, where they have a sweet little storefront. So go check them out. It's always fun to find physical shops and places that you can go get your hands on the actual hemp products. And so their clothing, it combines this rugged durability with style and fashion and sustainability. So it's perfect everyday wear. They've got socks and hats and t-shirts and some other really cool gear. So definitely go check them out. But before we dive into the conversation with Arlo, I just want to remind you about Hempaware and our platform to empower and hemp-educate you and provide you with the resources that you need to grow your hemp business and really elevate your brand in the hemp space. So don't miss out on our free hemp marketing audit. Just go to hempaware.com if you need a little bit of advice and kind of help you identify some of those hidden gaps in your marketing so that you can better find those customers, get your products in front of them, and ultimately get them to be customers for life. So go to hempaware.com, check it out. And without further ado, I'd love to welcome Arlo Estel from hempsmithclothing.com. Thanks so much for joining me, buddy. What's happening?
Hey, things are well, man. I'm glad to be here.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate the time. And I'm somewhat of a wordsmith, so I like that you've coined your own term, HempSmith. So I look forward to learning a little bit about your background and maybe share what your journey was kind of leading up to the hemp world and how you got introduced to hemp and what inspired you to start this company.
Yeah, definitely. So my brother Zafer actually started HempSmith back in high school. This was in like 2015. And he just took a hemp t-shirt and he embroidered a little hemp leaf on it as an emblem. And he called it HempSmith, and he sold some shirts to his buddies. But it was a pretty low key, kind of just like a joke a little bit. I think he had read an article about the future of industrial hemp fiber. And I think he was interested in bringing hemp clothing to the mainstream. And so he worked with one of his friends who was a designer, and she came up with a logo and a lot of our branding elements. And so over time, he kind of just pieced together this cute little small like brand of HempSmith clothing. And then he wanted to raise some cash before he actually took it to like the next level. So he wanted like $10,000 in seed money before he even started. And so he kind of just packed it up in the closet and didn't do a whole lot with it, but took off to Colorado for school. And so he was out at Boulder at the Colorado University, and he was studying marketing and business. And in 2016, Zafer actually passed away from a heroin overdose. And so it was shocking. And it really, my whole life was turned upside down. My family was shocked. And I remember within that first week of hearing of Zafer's loss, that I think I could take this brand and really run with it, and I could carry Zafer's legacy and keep HempSmith alive. And so I dug out the box of shirts, and there was probably 8 or 10 like hemp shirts in there, and they were already branded. And I started selling them to Zafer's old friends and my friends, and the community really got around this idea. And it was kind of this big wake of grief and loss that I picked up this brand, and I remember buying like my first 50 shirts. I was like a senior in high school, and it really scared me to like buy that many shirts. I was like, wow, it's a lot of money, dropping $500 on t-shirts. Like, what am I doing here? But they started selling. And so I really came into it. The logo was made. The product was already designed. I had a source. So like the brand was just kind of laying there. All the pieces were there. So I started just running with it. And over time, I learned how to tie dye. And my neighbor taught me how to screen print. And that was almost like 8 or 9 years ago. And we've grown quite a bit. And we have a storefront now here in Pittsboro. And I got to go to the School of Textiles at NC State. And I've just learned so much. And I feel really grateful for my brother Zafer and for this brand, HempSmith.
Wow, that's really inspiring, and also somewhat of a sad story. I feel you, brother. That's such a hard thing. I can't imagine what you had to go through in your family, and really send my condolences. I know it's been years, but I'm sure your heart will never heal from that. It's a lot to handle, and really also really inspiring to know that you picked this up in his wake and are carrying the brand forward in his spirit. And that's just super inspiring and insightful. And
thank you, man.
Appreciate that.
Hey,
yeah,
that's very kind. Well, I'm very grateful, man.
So Zafer studied marketing. He built this little brand, got this logo done with a friend, and then passed away, and you pretty much picked up the baton from there. I mean, obviously, I'm sure he's a huge influence in you in helping you move this forward, but is there anybody else that was a big influence on your career path or getting into this and wanting to have your own business? Like, have you studied from other people or had influences that you want to mention?
Oh, definitely. Well, I feel blessed to have two really brilliant, amazing parents here in Pittsboro. Both my parents are entrepreneurs here in this small town, and they've been like practicing small business for many years. And so I kind of grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and my dad was originally making biodiesel from waste vegetable oil, and my mom was running a nonprofit, Abundance, North Carolina, and her mission was to build resilience in community and highlight like sustainable agriculture. And so like mission driven business, and has been at the heart of a lot of what my family has been doing for many years. And so it all happened very organically. My dad has, over time, he transitioned into distilling. And so now he runs a distillery. He makes a lot of whiskey and rum, and he's got a gin now. And so he would be dropping like a new spirit. He would have a big like rum release or something, and he would just invite me to pop up at his event. And so, in the beginning, I would just pop up with a little table, and I would just be like the little kid selling my tie-dyes, for the most part, and I was just the little, like the high schooler or like the fresh into university. I would come home for the weekend, and I would pop up at like the pepper festival that my mom would throw, so they definitely opened a lot of doors for me, and it's been just a kind of a big collaboration. They've been some of my greatest like counselors and advisors, and my parents and I are actually working together still at this really cool project called The Plant here in Pittsboro, and it's an old aluminum plant that we've repurposed. And so we've taken it from like a dilapidated industrial like teardown, and we've turned it into this like vibrant food and beverage campus. We've got like 2 stages now, and we're becoming quite the music venue. We've got 3 restaurants, and that's where HempSmith is located. So we have this tiny little boutique. We call it the Atelier. That's like a designer's workshop, and it's a tiny shop, so we've had to get creative with our use of space here. And so we actually installed a second story in this building. So we have a little loft here, which is our music studio, and me and my buddies like playing music. And so it's all kind of happened very organically, but I'm very grateful to my parents for all the support, and many other, my parents are members of the community here. So there's been a lot of like wise counselors that have helped me along the way.
That's super cool. That's really nice to have such supportive parents. I mean, it really helps mold you and shape who you are in the world. And it's a cool story. I love the purpose-driven mission too, or mission-driven business. We are very big believers in purpose and having a vision for your life. And in the Bible, it says, where there is no vision, the people will perish. And it certainly sounds like you guys have a clear vision and you're bringing that down to the earth with that physical space. That's really fun to be able to get your hands crafting and making stuff and having that atelier.
Hey.
So yeah, that's cool, man.
Oh, true that. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
So as far as like other entrepreneurs that are getting into this space, or maybe they want to create their own hemp company, or maybe hempsters that are already selling hemp products, what sort of advice would you give them as far as how to grow their brand, get their message out there? What are some of the things that you've had to maybe deal with that were challenging that you overcame and maybe, could share or impart with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I feel blessed I've gotten to take a few different like programs, like marketing programs, and I got my degree at NC State. And so I have kind of been studying branding and marketing for a while now, and also just like bootstrapping this brand I've gained a lot of experience in this small business of how to sell a hemp t-shirt, and it's starting to work like here in Pittsboro, and so HempSmith doesn't have like a really monster online presence. Like we have a website and I'm proud of it, and we do ship product, but the bulk of our business is kind of just a local like customer base here in North Carolina. And so as far as advice, I would say there's the importance of focus and getting clear on what you want and need. And then also mindset. That's what I learned from one marketing course I took that was kind of like a grad program. And they started the whole course with like a few weeks of mindset. They weren't even talking about like marketing. They started it with, it's all about what you believe, and your beliefs shape your behavior, and your behavior shapes your reality. And then that's just like a feedback loop. And so it really starts with, you just got to train your mind and almost not brainwash, but relearn and unlearn some things that this culture can teach us. And so if you really believe you can, then then you can. And also just in terms of vital few things, for me, I've found like, it's sometimes I'm prone to like, oh, I got to go scrub the website and study the analytics and, dive into all the numbers and the targeting and all that. And it's like, well, the reality is I need to like get sober, or start working out, or like getting like my like, daily lifestyle right, and like preparing to be the champion that this brand needs. That's going to have a way bigger impact than any like advertising campaign I'm going to run or anything. It's like, it's about kind of maybe mastering oneself and getting clear on what you want and need, and then taking massive action and reiterating from there.
That's beautiful. I have definitely could have an entire podcast just on that topic and resonate very deeply with what you shared. I remember when I was 17 is when I was introduced to Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
And it's very much about mindset and belief. And it reminds me of a quote from Henry Ford. He says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct, or you are right.
Hey.
So having that mindset, we are broadcasters and receivers of energy and frequency. And so what we put out, we get back. It's that law of reciprocation and the law of karma, whatever you want to call it. It is real and it is true.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree with you. It doesn't matter how much external action you do, if you're not aligned with yourself and have that core understanding of your true potential and realize that you are a spiritual, electrical, unlimited being capable of achieving anything that you set your heart and your mind on. If you have that doubt and that self-loathing, or you're still dealing with anger and resentment and fear and grief, like that holds your frequency down. And so you, like you said, I mean, there is some level of brute force. If you go out and just knock on enough doors or call enough people, someone's going to buy from you, someone's going to do business with you. But it makes it so much easier to set up and kind of pre-pave that frequency and set the intention. Like you said, get clear, get focused, know what you want, know what you need, and focus on that self-mastery, and the path reveals itself. So,
hey, well, that's true, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah, you said it. So as far as getting into some of your favorite things about hemp, what would you say are like a couple fun facts or statistics or historical stories, I guess you could say, that really inspire you about hemp or that you often share with people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do feel passionate about this material and this plant, and I want to bring it back to like America and the world. I want to build quite the industry here in North Carolina. And I'm just really, I'm passionate about the uses of hemp. So it's a very versatile crop. You can do a whole lot with it. You can build houses with it. I'm sure you're familiar of all the, it can provide nutrition, and its seed and its durable fiber can make really incredible materials for clothing and for building, and there's just all sorts of applications. And I think hemp could play a really big role in a shift towards a more renewable economy and industry. And so I think it could help us displace petroleum for one, and I think that's needs to happen like sooner than later. And that, I think, will be a big theme of our lifetime, is finding substitutes to all the petroleum that we're currently using, both in just like the fossil fuels in our transportation and all the emissions, but as well as like, synthetic fibers and all the like single use disposable plastics. And so I do think hemp could play a very large role in just a shift to a more restorative economy. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is sparking the restorative economy. And I think there's a new way, there's a different way of being that doesn't have to be rooted in extraction and oppression and exploitation of the earth's natural resources. We can be building hemp or growing hemp and sequestering carbon simultaneously. And it just seems like this super plant, and it's also got a really rich history. So I think there's a reason no one really knows about hemp, or like a lot of people walk into our storefront and they're kind of shocked, or they don't really understand what's happening here, or like, it's called HempSmith, but then when they learn it's made of hemp fiber, they're like, oh, okay, well now that makes sense, and it's like, it's not the norm. Like no one, or it feels like a lot of people do not know about the uses of hemp, and that's probably intentional. I think like there's big interest involved. I think probably big oil and big pharma and big lumber have really stifled this crop, and it was a mistake. And I think it's coming to the mainstream and it's surfacing, and so I feel lucky to be a part of it, and it does feel like good work we're doing. My favorite historical fact would be, I heard somewhere that the word canvas is derived from the word cannabis, because all canvas, the cloth, was made from industrial hemp back in the day, like the canvas on the Mayflower, that like the sails that got us here, and like the first American flag was made with hemp fiber. And so there's just such a rich history, and no one's talking about it. Like I went to the College of Textiles at NC State, and they have a great program there, and I'm grateful for them. And they mentioned hemp fiber like twice in my like 4 years of being there, and so it's like, why is no one talking about this? And so I feel lucky to be involved and to be able to bring hemp home and bring it back to the people.
Amen. Yeah. And on that note of like the historical use of hemp canvas and the word canvas and cannabis, I've certainly heard the etymology in its roots there. And one of the fun facts about hemp canvas was that the covered wagons in the westward movement were all covered in hemp. And Old Ironsides, the USS Constitution Navy ship, had something like 60 tons of hemp rigging, like all those ropes. Damn. Like you said, the sails used to all be made out of it. Apparently, Vikings used to sail with it and make hemp beer. So maybe your dad could pick up some of their recipes or something.
Hey.
So I appreciate your fun facts. It's always nice to unroot the history that's been covered and swept under the polyester rug, so to speak.
True
so
that.
As a brand, as a company, where do you guys feel like you shine? Like what do you feel you do best as a business?
Yeah. Well, I think at HempSmith, we're a very like small town, bootstrapped, like homemade brand. Like we're definitely not one of the big dogs, you know. And where do we shine? I think like high touch. That's where I pride myself in our brand of like, we are a high touch clothing retailer. Like we care that we want it to fit right, you know, and we care that you like feel good in it, you know, and when you come back, like there's a smiling like person that's like willing to exchange it to get it the right size or to replace it if you needed a different color or whatever. And so that's what my parents kind of have taught me. Like, you know, you want to really take care of your customer and establish that relationship. And that's what, you know, I think sales and especially clothing has really become such a like distant or removed thing where we're all like shopping online, and if it doesn't fit, you just like landfill it or return it, like, and it gets landfilled eventually, or like, you know, no one really cares about like people's fit or clothing anymore, it feels like. So just to have a real human that is here at the storefront, that's like, you know, I want to make sure that you're stoked on your purchase, and like we often guarantee our products, you know where to find us. Like, I'm not trying to rip you off or anything, you know, we are high dollar as well. And so I think that speaks to like quality. Our dress shirts have started selling really well, and I think that could be some of the future of HempSmith. I think HempSmith kind of started with the tie-dye t-shirt back when I was in high school, and it might end with like the high dollar dress shirt. And so we're retailing this shirt for $78 right now, and it's a hemp linen. It's a source up in Canada, but it's an imported fabric from China. And so it's quite the global supply chain. And then it just comes to me in North Carolina, and I embroider our little emblem and our name on the back. And then we bring it to the customer. And so I think there's a lot of potential in that. Our dress shirts just get softer with age, and they really are a quality product. So I'm really excited to be working on this brand. And another big mission of mine is to bring hemp home, where I want to see North Carolina hemp being grown here. And we're starting to grow it, but no one can really process it quite yet. And so I've been beating the drum of I want to buy North Carolina fabric or a hemp t-shirt that's grown locally. And it's just not on the market yet. Or I've been looking for it for years now, and I haven't found it. And so ultimately I'd love there for this to be North Carolina hemp. And I want to know the farmer that grew the hemp that goes into our t-shirts. So I'm really excited about that.
That would be so rewarding. I really look forward to that day too. Having grown on our own soil, grown, processed, manufactured all here in the States would be really rewarding.
Yes, sir.
And you talked about a couple things that are super crucial to marketing, which kind of segues into the next couple of questions I had for you. And for our listeners that are trying to grow their brands, trying to get sales, get leads into their business, one thing that you talked about was the touch points and really having a personal relationship building experience with your company. And I think that's really what can separate one business from the next, is your ability to increase those touch points. And I think there's a statistic, something like a person has to interact with your brand a minimum of like 12 to 18 times before they decide to buy from you. And so having clarity knowing that someone might see your brand. Well, that first stage is that they're unaware of you. And then they become maybe product aware, like, oh, they discover that wearing polyester is just super toxic and it leaches into their blood. And so now they have a problem, but they don't know how to solve it. And so each stage of that buyer's journey, having assets and resources and materials and ways to sort of carry them down that journey, is what marketing really is. Marketing is finding a need and then fulfilling it. And how we do that is through interactive communication, which is what relationship building really is. And so I like that you're bringing that sales process into a more intimate person-to-person experience. And the word sell, like when you're selling something, and it's a German origin. It comes from the word sellen, S-E-L-L-E-N, which means to give. And so that's really what selling is. It's this giving. Both parties are giving. So there's a give and a receive, of course, of value. And of course, somebody gives you $78 for a shirt because they feel like they're going to get more value than whatever that dollar represents to them. And so the more people learn about hemp, they do realize like it feels better, it wears better, it lasts longer, it's more durable, it's more healthy for your own system and the ecosystem. Yeah. And so as it relates to marketing, let's kind of talk about marketing for a second in terms of most people that I find in the hemp industry. They're super passionate. They get really educated about hemp and they know a lot about their products, but they struggle. They get frustrated with what it takes to run a business, especially in the hemp industry, trying to, figure out what to do and where to find their customers and how to talk to them and how to inspire them to take action. Is there a particular like channel? Obviously you guys have a physical storefront, but can you tell me what you're currently doing to, I guess, market your products? Do you have social media? Are you doing paid ads? Are you doing cold calling? Or are you just relying on word of mouth? Like, can you tell me what that looks like?
So, I like to think that here at HempSmith, we have a pretty guerrilla marketing strategy. And I'm very skeptical of kind of conventional marketing. I've by now I've met a lot of people that have tried to sell me on their marketing services or whatever. And often they're kind of false or empty, they're like, I know how to sell product. Yeah, you go on Instagram and you buy an ad and then you blow up. That's how that works. And I've tried that. I've been there, and it didn't really work. And I've dropped dollars on ad spend, and I've bought brand new websites, and I've paid lots of money to lots of people to try to blow up our brand and go viral and take it to the moon. And I've kind of finally just I'm kind of at peace with our organic growth. And I think staying in the game, for one, it's just stay alive. I'm also fortunate to be in the location that I'm at. So Pittsboro there's a lot of development going on here, right outside of Raleigh. North Carolina is growing like a weed. And I'm a hometown favorite. And so I do just think that if I can stick around for another 5 years, then our brand is already established here in the Triangle. And it will just continue to grow, and it already is. So word of mouth has been a big one that we have relied on. And also my location here at the plant. The plant is starting to gain traction and get discovered. We're kind of off the beaten path, which has made it tricky in the past to have enough retail traffic, but we're slowly becoming discovered. And it's quite the experience here that we've curated, my parents and I, so that once you come down the lane here to the plant, you're kind of blown away, and you're so blown away that you go and tell 12 friends. And so that's the overwhelming feedback that I get is oh, I didn't know this place existed, or oh, I didn't know this was back here. And once you do know, you're kind of raving about it, and you're stoked, and you become a loyal customer, and you come back and you bring your family. And so just here at HempSmith with our bricks and mortar, that's like a safe bet, I think, for me. And that's a horse that's going to really keep running. And so I feel grateful for that. And then the guerrilla marketing, for instance, we just held our fashion show. It's the HempSmith runway, and it was last Friday, and it was killer. It was the fifth annual, which I'm really proud of. It was a lot of work, and it was kind of stressful like a week ago. And so what we did is we curated we had 10 collections on the runway from local designers, and we just invited them out to have a collection on the runway. And then we lined up the DJ and the photographers, and we sold the tickets, and it was here at the plant in the events venue. And we ended up getting 120 people out last Friday to celebrate slow fashion. And, I was the MC, and I had a lot of my homies modeling, and it all came together really beautifully. And I got a lot of good feedback, and people are reaching out. And so I met a lot of people that way, even from previous years of the fashion show. I got into a documentary, some woman came and filmed me to be in her documentary, and she first learned of us through our fashion show. And so I would say that would be a guerrilla approach that I'm really proud of. And it's if you want to go take $1,000 and drop it on an ad campaign, you can go pay Google or Meta. And, to me, that's putting money into a black pit that maybe some analytics come back and it's oh, you got 278 views for that. And to me, it's I didn't see a lot of conversions. When I was doing ad spend, I was paying money to Google and Meta and all of that. And it's not the sales just came flooding in. And so after a while of that, I just I cut that. I was okay, if I want to drop money on furthering this brand, it's going to be on my own terms. And I'd much rather pay a photographer and a DJ to show up to have a fashion show. And that's going to make waves. And I'm seeing results from that. And so, and then also you're also supporting local artists, you're selling out to local photographers and DJs and cool designers, rather than lining the pockets of Facebook business suite. So that feels good to me. And so I am just kind of relying on a lot of word of mouth. And we also do a lot of pop-ups around the Triangle. And I pop up at a music festival twice a year. It's a pretty big music festival for this area. It's called Shikori Grassroots. And they'll have 10,000 people out in a weekend. We sell our tie-dyes there. And so people do know us from Shikori, and people know us from the plant. People know us from Raleigh. And so I think over time, we're just building out this customer base, and that's my strategy.
I love that, man. Yeah, I got started out that same way 20 plus years ago. I started doing Hempaware parties, and there used to be this thing called Tupperware parties where women would get together and have a party and bring a bunch of neighbors over and sell them Tupperware. And so that's kind of how I coined the word Hempaware. And we used to do the same thing, get locals together, do fashion shows, and have all sorts of hemp booths. And we had our hemp-education station for the nation where we empower and hemp-educate your hempisphere and put emphasis on what's most important and just make it fun and playful and family friendly. And to me, that's the most visceral, rewarding experience, and really getting people in front of stuff and avoiding the big guerrilla of Google and Meta and all of that. I'm totally on the same page. And so to kind of wrap up what you said or summarize, being in a physical spot where you can get the overlap of the other businesses in the area, at the plant, there's restaurants there. People might come and go to another shop and then see you. And so you get physical traffic, the people walking by. Yeah. And then they go out and spread the good word. So that word of mouth is super powerful. And then live events, just showing up places and inviting people, selling tickets. Those are some of the most powerful ways of spreading a brand organically. So I commend you, and you're doing the right thing, and love what you guys are doing. And just to, kind of wrap it up and share a few more insights with our listeners about what you got going, where would you say the future, the biggest potential of hemp for people maybe that are just getting into it? or even for HempSmith, like where do you see the biggest path opening up, or some of the biggest opportunities with hemp that people should consider?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about hemp building materials. This is something that I don't even know a lot about yet, but it's kind of been thrown around the past few years, like buzzwords of like hempcrete and hemp wood flooring. And I think it's got a lot of potential. And so the clothing industry plays a big role in our society with, and there's a lot of pollution and waste of energy and materials. But the construction industry is, I feel like, even more, or it might be equal. I don't know all the stats and stuff, but I think hempcrete could play a really large role in the future. There's a brand up in possibly Michigan, Hemp for Humanity, and we did some shirts for them, and they're a really cool project. Cody North, and he's doing like affordable housing out of hemp, like building materials, and I just found that like so cool. And so I want to build a house out of hempcrete. That's actually a goal of mine. I hope to do that like next year even. And I want to see how it performs, and anything that can displace some of the like toxic building materials that we're relying on now. Hemp grows really quickly, so like if we could stop cutting down all these old growth trees or even pines that take longer to grow, I think hemp could play a pretty large role in our building industries if we got behind it, and start subsidizing the right thing. So like oil is so cheap because the government has gotten behind it, right? And it's so subsidized. And hemp is so expensive because the industry is so new here in America, and it's not propped up by the man. So maybe if the government and the world can get behind hemp in the way that we've gotten behind other materials like petroleum, I think it could play a very big role in a shift to a restorative economy. And I think it could help heal this planet. And I've got a lot of hope for humanity. And I think we're starting to get smart with our resources, and we're going to start conserving, and we're going to start even the shift to electric vehicles in my lifetime. It's only been 10 years now or something since EV has been a thing, and that's really blown me away how quickly it's happened and how dramatic the efficiency is, so we've improved efficiency in big ways in my lifetime, just in the past decade. And I think we can do the same with our building and with our clothing, and also our agriculture is a big one. And so, but I've got a lot of hope, and I think hemp will play a big role in it.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think the building industry is second largest contributor to carbon output. And so it's not only that, like you said, the toxins, the glues, the VOCs, formaldehyde, and petroleum-based materials, fiberglass, just all these toxic materials that easily attract mold and mildew and create toxic building syndrome. So not only are we destroying the planet with our current building materials, but we're destroying our health and our homes. And so I'm a very big believer in that as well. And with our company, Bulk Hemp Warehouse, our tagline is "Home is where the hemp is." And the word home actually comes from the Greek word eikos, E-I-K-O-S, which is like eco. So the word home is eco, which is ecosystem or ecology or economy. So the economy is just the numbers, the economy, the numbers of our home. So it's just having a place for everything, and everything in its place is like a true economy. And hemp is that perfect harmony of our internal and external ecosystems, our ecology, our economy. It's that synergy of creating health and balance throughout all of our systems. So I'm excited to see that too. It's one of the biggest things that we're investing in terms of our time and attention. And
very cool. I
get excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just two last questions. And the first one is, what's one question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Oh, that's a great one. Maybe what's the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur in small business? And let's see, to me, I think it's easy to get spread thin, and learning to say no might be, that's my current like theme for my life right now. Early on, if someone asked me to pop up at a market, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm there. I'm honored you asked me. And now, like, I'm starting to reject pop-ups. It's like, oh, you want me to have a HempSmith booth there? Well, like, no, like, I'm busy that day. Or let's say I'm not even busy. Like, I just don't want to, like trying to preserve my energy and protect my energy. That's been a really big learning lesson for me these past few months. But I am learning, and it's starting to make me more powerful. I feel my power is growing. There's that quote that's like, when you say yes, you are popular. And when you say no, you are respected. And so I think I'm learning to say no.
That's really good advice. And it reminds me of the power of a magnifying glass. If you try doing everything all at once, or even when it comes to marketing, if you try to market to everyone, you end up marketing to no one. And so it's that power and focus that can start a fire. It can spark something huge and be able to concentrate the entire sun into one dot and just ignite something super powerful. So I agree with you on that, and recommend anyone listening to stay focused, pick one thing and do it. In fact, we wrote a book called Do One Thing Hemp, and it's make your dot on the map, DOT, do one thing hemp. And it gives some resources in there on how to stay focused and really just laser in on that one thing that you're really good at, which is where the power comes from. So I agree with you on that.
Nice.
And so my last question is a little more on the philosophical side. I like to kind of put you on the spot and say, if you were standing on the world stage and speaking to every single human being on the planet, and you could share one message with them in say 30 to 60 seconds, what would you share with them or want them to know?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for asking. Well, I would say that a message of abundance. And so you are a brilliant, powerful, amazing person. And I know that because we all are. And you are a perfect work in progress and creating magnificently. And you're a child of this universe, and self-love is everything. And I think we all should channel, it's not selfish to love yourself, and it's really the practice of abundance and to share your self-love and your joy, and it radiates out. And so one thing at HempSmith that I've learned from one of my wise counselors is that HempSmith is an epicenter of global healing and transformation. And that goes for the brand HempSmith, and that goes for me as well. Like Arlo, I am an epicenter of global healing and transformation. And when I believe that, and when I put that out there, it radiates out, and it allows others to shine their light. And I think we can all really fix this planet and some of the problems we've gotten ourselves into. We can do it with love, and it all begins with ourselves. And so my healing heals the world, and I'm really grateful to have been involved with this. So thank you for all your great questions, Tyler.
Amen. My pleasure. It's been awesome, Arlo. I got to say, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you, getting to chat with you today. And I can't thank you enough for sharing the lessons and the stories and the ideas. And my audience, I'm sure, really appreciates it too. So thanks so much for joining me on another Hempisode of Hempaware Radio. And if you guys have any other ideas that you want to hear on the show, just email us support@hempaware.com, and we'll make it hempin'. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This is your entrepreneurial host, Tyler Hoff, checking out.
Hey, thank you, man.